Good morning, everyone. And on behalf of the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome you all to this morning's information webinar on the UK Government Kickstart Scheme. My name's Jo Davidson. I'm Director of Policy here at the Chamber, and it's my very great pleasure to host this morning's session and to see so many of you joining us today. The Kickstart Scheme, as I'm sure many of you will know, is a UK government scheme which was announced by the Chancellor Rishi Sunak in July 2020. As part of the Chancellor's Plan for Jobs, which set out the biggest package of support of youth unemployment in decades. The £2 billion funded programme enables qualifying employers to offer youngsters aged 16 to 24 who are claiming universal credit a 6-month work placement, with the government paying 100% of the age-related national minimum wage, national insurance and pension contributions for 25 hours a week employment. In addition to this, there's wraparound support grant funding, which is provided to employers for any training, equipment and onboarding costs that are associated with these job placements. This is a flagship programme which has intense ministerial oversight, and I think there is wide acknowledgement that a scheme of this kind is very much needed in the current circumstances. You'll have seen a lot of press around youth unemployment in the country, but in the UK as a whole, around 700,000 young people were set to leave education and enter the job market in 2020, with 250,000 more people aged under 25 claiming unemployment benefits since March 2020. And in Edinburgh, we have our own very specific issues. Latest figures on universal credit claimant counts that we've seen show that the city region claimant count has increased by 96% between February 2020 and January 2021. In the 6 local authorities that make up the city region, nearly 50,000 people were claiming universal credit in January 2021. And more relevant to this morning's topic, across the region there's been an increase of 101% in the 18 to 24-year-old claimant age bracket, with almost 9,000 young people claiming in December 2021. And worryingly, we're seeing numbers of universal credit claimants coming from areas of the city which you wouldn't historically have seen numbers coming from. And also we've seen a rise in the number of people who are in work who are claiming universal credit also. We at the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce, as an accredited member of the British Chambers of Commerce, have been working very closely with our colleagues at the Department for Work and Pensions since last summer on the design and implementation of the scheme, trying to make sure that the needs and requirements of our members and the wider business community, particularly smaller businesses, are taken into account. We are a Kickstart Gateway operation, which no doubt you'll hear all about this morning, and we are delighted that Jimmy O'Connell, our Head of Operations here at the Chamber, who many of you will know, and who manages the service for us, joins us this morning as one of our expert speakers. Jimmy has worked in youth employability in Edinburgh and the region for many years. I won't embarrass him by saying how many, but it's more than his useful good looks would give testament to. But before he took on the role at the Chamber in terms of leading our operational efforts, he was a senior member of the Developing the Young Workforce team in the region too. And Jimmy is joined this morning by our other keynote speaker, Linda Gibb. Linda is a senior employer and partnership manager for Edinburgh's local Department for Work and Pensions scheme. Linda and our team have had the unenviable but critical job of actually delivering this scheme live and in the round, as it were. And she and Jimmy in particular have been working very closely in recent months to try and navigate the new initiative to support employers and businesses. Jimmy and Linda will also be introducing some of their colleagues throughout the session this morning who've been directly working with them on the implementation and development of the scheme. So we really couldn't be in better hands today, and if you have a question or a concern or an issue or something you'd like to raise, these are the people that you should be raising it with. Before I hand over to Jimmy and Linda to take us through the details of the scheme, just some points of format. Our speakers will speak this morning, and then we'll have the Q&A session. We would ask, I'm sure we're all very familiar with the etiquette by now anyway, but if you're not speaking, please stay on mute. If you'd like to ask a question, you can do so in the chat function as our speakers are speaking this morning, and we'll come to the Q&A session at the end of the speaking portion. and we'll raise those questions then, or you can use your electronic hand once the Q&A session begins later in the session. We'll come to you live. If possible, I know that sometimes people raise physical hands. If you could use the electronic hand raising, that would be preferable, because there are quite a number of us on the call this morning, and it's probably going to be quite difficult for us to spot you, but we'll do our best if that's how you choose to raise your question. So without further ado, I'll hand over now to Jimmy and Linda to kick us off this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jo. Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to actually see so many of you here, and so many familiar faces and familiar names. We've spoken to quite a few of you lately. I see some of you that are already heavily involved in the Kickstart scheme as well, which is great to see. And we've got some case studies coming out from the programme as well. But what we're going to do today, this is really an opportunity. It's information sharing. It's to give you some more information on how the Kickstart programme actually runs. It's the operational side of it, and to give you some hints and tips on making the whole process a little bit smoother for you as well. I am joined by some colleagues from DWP. So we have got Linda Gibb, who is our Senior Employer and Partnership Manager, and our DWP Account Manager for Kickstart as well. We have Suzanne Mann on the call too, who is a service leader for East of Scotland, who will say a few words a little bit later, and I will introduce her at the time. And then we also have Mark Mackay, who is a Kickstart District Account Manager for East of Scotland as well. So, these are the real experts at the heart of Kickstart and DWP. So great opportunity to table some of your questions at the end of the presentations this morning. And I couldn't go any further without introducing my ever so reliable colleague, Rachel Finlay, who is very new to the Chamber, but has been an absolute champion in terms of the administration and working with every single employer and guiding them through the process of Kickstart and doing the follow-ups and making sure that the financial information is up to date and that payments are processed through to the employers as well. So there's quite a few of us here to give you all the help and support that you need today. Just to go over some of the more detail of the Kickstart scheme, as Jo said, it was launched in July 2020 by Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, and it will run until December this year. So anybody starting on the scheme by the end of December this year, it will run through to June 22. It's government funded paid work experience in a real business. It's this flagship scheme to really help young people that are claiming universal credit and at risk of long-term unemployment to get really good work experience and increase their long-term employability skills. It's a 6-month programme, and it is one of a number of different DWP schemes that are available. And really the main emphasis from this for employers is about getting employers to become really heavily involved in improving that long-term employability prospects for young people to help tackle the scourge of youth unemployment that we have at the moment. Eligibility criteria, this is questions that we get asked quite a lot. Any business can apply to participate in the UK Kickstart scheme. And in terms of the roles, the business themselves need to create a brand new role within their organisation. It's a role that wouldn't exist without the opportunity of the Kickstart funding being available. And in terms of these roles, it cannot be a role that would replace any current or future planned vacancies within the business as well. And if Emma, if you could maybe put your slides on at the moment, I think there's.
Yep, I'll do that.
Yeah, if we're able to do that, just so that the audience can see it. So we're on to slide 3, eligibility criteria. Yep. So the vacancies that are created within the businesses that wish to participate need to be brand new, as we said, and not replace current or future planned vacancies within the business. So in essence, it's it doesn't cause any existing employee to reduce their level of employment or any contractors associated with that as well. If we move on to the next slide, which is talking about the job placements and opportunities and the types of roles, etc. I was going to bring in Linda and Suzanne just to talk a little bit more about the types of opportunities that DWP are hoping to secure through Kickstart. So it's over to Suzanne, if you'd like to say a few words.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you, Jimmy, for that introduction. I'm just really delighted to be here today and really talk to you a little bit about Kickstart and the really important role that it plays, as you quite rightly described there, about supporting our young people into work. I think what's really exciting about Kickstart is a scheme like we've never had before. The type of funding that comes along with this to provide some really, really good opportunities for our young people should really, help give them the experience and the evidence on their CVs that will help them, whether it lands up being a permanent role within the employer they've been working with or into something else in that type of sector that they've been working with as well. So some really good references and some really good up-to-date experience they can put on their CV. I just was really delighted to come along today and really excited to be here to really make sure that you can really feel that DWP are here to support you and do everything that we absolutely can to help you work through all of the different processes. And I think, we've probably all been through a learning journey over the last few months, but certainly getting into a really good stride with it all now. And Linda and Mark are sort of living and breathing this day to day and dealing with all of this. So I'll probably just hand over to Linda to kind of go through the type of job roles that are in demand with us at the minute. So Linda, can I just hand over to yourself?
Thanks, Suzanne, and thank you very much for the opportunity today, Jamie, Rachel. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just to say that I think we're learning a lot as we go along, and that in Edinburgh we do have a range of young people, and as you will all know, having worked in and around the city, we have people that have just graduated last year, people who have perhaps had their education and aspirations paused because of the pandemic. We have people who were maybe struggling to find work before the pandemic. So we've got a big range of young people that we are trying to support. And what we find, just now is that where an employer has expressed their desire to take part in Kickstart, we really want to understand their business and their job role so that we can spend time matching the young person to the most appropriate Kickstart opportunity. And that's where our team of work coaches and the dedicated work coaches just working with their youths and understanding, what sort of sectors they want to work in, and also seeing, do we have jobs in that sector just now? And if we don't, opportunities like this and the Gateway Roundtable that we hold every fortnight allows us to reach out to gateways like the Chamber of Commerce and their network of employers like yourselves to say, we do have young people who would really benefit for opportunities within your organisation. So to say that we have a typical customer is not something that we do have. We have a vast range, and what we would really like is to spend time getting to know them and then linking in through organisations like the Chamber of Commerce to make sure that you can find out what those young people's aspirations are. So for example, the Chamber of Commerce are meeting with their work coach team leaders of our youth work coaches to hear what are their work coaches telling them, where are the gaps and the opportunities for our young people, and which employers would we like to encourage to take part in Kickstart. So just bring it, really joining up the whole picture so that we do have an opportunity. And our aspiration is an opportunity for every young person that wishes to take part in Kickstart. So just to really leave that there, and I don't know if there's a thoughts for any questions or anything at this point, or if we want to move on to the next thing, but that certainly is that we're always looking to expand our range of vacancies, and we always really try to understand our customer base and create an opportunity for that customer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll come in at this point as well. Edinburgh Chamber as a gateway organisation do work incredibly closely with Linda and her team and colleagues and the work coaches, and it's really to understand the customer group that under the age of 24 that are claiming universal credit and at risk of long-term unemployment, and the types of opportunities that they're looking for. And then that allows us to work with employers to scope out those particular kinds of roles that are really suitable for the individuals. One of the points in the slide here is talking about managing expectations. So it's our role as a gateway to really sort of share the intelligence that we get from DWP with employers. So a lot of employers, or not a lot, but employers maybe be looking for a particular kind of individual. But the pool of candidates to choose from within the DWP cohort of claimants might actually be quite small. So it's really about sharing that information and understanding, so that if an employer is looking for somebody with very, very high level qualifications, then it might be that Kickstart might not be the best platform for them to use. But it's this, as we start to see the program developing further and further, and we start to get that local labour intelligence, we're able to share that data with the employers on the Kickstart scheme as well.
Yeah.
I think you would agree with that, Linda.
I think that is absolutely key, and we're so grateful for everybody who has got on board at an early stage without having that sort of engagement in advance to say this is what your customer group are looking for. We have to go with what employers are offering us just now and match customers to those, and where it's not an exact fit, go back to the employer and just have a conversation about if that skill was completely necessary, or if there was training that they could perhaps put in place that would make that job role more attractive. And so with that sort of conversation, it does widen the pool of candidates that can come on board and meet the vacancies. And we do have a lot of vacancies which are maybe requiring a degree or certain software programming skills and things like that as well. So we have a full range, and then we have other ones where they're perhaps working in directly fast food retails, things like that as well, and all equally as valuable, and all equally taking someone on a journey where they will have that up-to-date work experience, they will be getting paid. So let's not forget that, because right now, if someone's on benefit, they want a job and they want paid. And where Kickstart and through a gateway organisation and a quality gateway like the Chamber of Commerce, where we know how invested you are in ensuring that anyone taking part does get that wraparound support, that the £1,500 is really invested in that young person, so that if it should end at the end of 6 months and they don't go on to an apprenticeship or another opportunity, they are coming out the other end in a much more employable state than if they were, prior to joining Kickstart. And that's really one of the benefits that I see, and that's, why I would say that there is real advantages in being involved in with a gateway organisation who have all of that employability knowledge at their fingertips, where you're maybe just wanting to get on with your business. They can direct you to the best person or the best organisation that can, provide your young person with that wraparound support.
And I think I was just going to come in there and say, I was just going to come in there and say really around that support for gateway organisations is absolutely vital. And we in DWP have account managers, I think we talked about those earlier, that really work with the gateway organisation and the employers to understand what is it that you really need from that customer. Is that level of qualifications required, or is something a bit more streamlined going to give you a better pool of people to work with? But what we also do with the work coaches is they do the wraparound support as well with our customers to make sure when they're talking and making referrals. So for us, making a referral to an opportunity is not the end of the journey. We need to make sure that we're absolutely capturing what you need in the person. So we're making sure that we showcase the right quality of CVs, the right quality of covering letters, so that what comes to you actually makes you able to make an educated decision about who you want to take on, and you're not just faced with, you know, poor quality, so that poor quality of applications. So that engagement with the account manager, with yourselves, to understand how are the applications going, are they the right quality, are they what you're looking for, and then they are in account managers work with our work coaches to let them know if we're, you know, if we're hitting the mark, or if we need to look to a wider pool of people and do some upskilling on the CVs and stuff. So there's a whole piece of work that goes on there to really make sure that the quality of candidates you get is of the caliber that you're looking for, and that you can make the right choices of who you want to take on based on the applications that you get.
I mean, I would come in at this point as well and say we have been getting some inquiries from speculative inquiries from employers as well who are interested in the scheme. And as a gateway organisation, we're very happy to work with the gateway, or with the employer, and start to shape up what a potential opportunity might look like. So anybody in the audience there today that is maybe not quite sure of what they could offer, have that conversation with myself and Rachel. We can put you in touch with relevant individuals at DWP, Linda and Mark there, and we can, you know, start looking at creating particular roles that would be really, really suitable and enriching, and in terms of training and support for young people as well. I think we're ready to move on to the next slide. Emma, if you're available there. Okay. At this point, I thought we would, in the presentations, we would go into something a bit more in terms of the procedures and how businesses can get onboarded into the Kickstart process. And I'd like to bring in Rachel here, who is definitely the admin queen when it comes to everything in relation to the Kickstart process. So Rachel now will just talk about some of the hints and tips for applications, and then I'll go into the due diligence side of things. So Rachel, over to you.
It's good to see some friendly faces on here of applications I've handled, but as Jimmy said, on the day-to-day side of things, I manage all the applications that are coming in and out for us for the chamber. Now, in terms of the application form, it is pretty straightforward. A lot of the details should be quite ready to hand for you as it stands. So when you apply, we'll send you out an application form which will have some guidance in situ. The first part of the application form is just details surrounding your personal contact details for us to be able to get in touch with you regarding the vacancy you're hoping to make, as well as the organisation details. So this will just be looking for things such as contact details, organisation address, postcodes and bits like that. One thing to note for this part of the application form is it will ask for your company's house. And just to take note that the address that is associated to your company's house must match the address that you're stating on your application, as that could flag up in the due diligence checks, but Jimmy can discuss that later. So then as you're going through the form, once you've filled in your personal details, the next important section that the form will ask you to cover is what information do you have to show this job placement is just for the Kickstart scheme? How is this placement different from any existing or planned future vacancies? So as you're aware, in order to be eligible for the scheme, the placements must not replace any planned or future vacancies. It must be newly created just for the scheme. So in this box here, you'd be putting in a little statement just to state that. It'll also ask you to include any information regarding any changes to your workforce over the last 6 months. So that includes any redundancies. So then as we're going through the form, the next part will be the vacancy template, which is what applicants will be able to see when they're applying for the positions. We've added this into the application process at the start just to streamline the process a bit, so we're capturing all the data at the beginning of your application process and then going through it when it comes to submitting your vacancy. If there's any details that need to be changed at that point, I'll be able to have a wee look and get back to you on that. But in terms of the vacancy template, it's pretty standard. So it'll ask you for things such as the title of the position, the job placement summary. And in this section here, would advise that you try and put as much information as you can, because in the job placement summary, this is what applicants will be able to see when they're looking to apply for the job. So if you can include any and all duties and responsibilities you can foresee for this. The next section that's quite important for the form, and which Jimmy has touched upon, is the essential skills, experience and qualifications. As we've said, just be aware of the client group that this scheme is aiming to handle. We are getting a lot of applications that are looking for degree level qualifications. And while there are degree educated individuals on universal credit, this is more the exception than the norm. So just to be aware, the more restrictive you are with your skills and experience the position needs, the less likely you're going to be to get a big pool of candidates for that position. So that's just something to bear in mind. Then going through the application form, it'll ask for a number of hours per week. So the scheme will fund 25 hours, but you're more than welcome to state more hours, but just to be aware that can be topped up from your own accounts. It'll also ask you just to specify the working pattern and contracted hours if you know that already. Now, one of the key sections to consider in the application form is the details of employability support. So this is any training opportunities and mentoring. As we've said, we need to make sure that the training and that will take place for the candidate will benefit them long term, not just solely for the 6-month placement, but beyond the placement, that they will have picked up some skills and essential training that will benefit them long term. This is where we've been really emphasising the importance of different training courses that you can put the candidate onto. And as your Gateway organisation, we've compiled a whole host of external training providers, as well as our own courses that you can put your candidate onto, and this would help their long-term employability. So in this section here, it's just really important to detail if you'll be given any hints or tips when it comes to interviews, if there'll be shadowing, or if there's any set training courses that you would be keen for the candidate to go on that would be covered. Then the last part of the application form will just be looking to capture your contact details for the vacancy posting. That will just be the person to contact when it comes to applicants applying for the positions, as well as how applicants can apply for the job placement. And that tends to be CV and cover letter. The one important section to consider in the last part is the maximum number of referrals per job placement. One thing we have slightly touched upon is that referrals do not always match applications. So it's always best to have a higher number of referrals, because what will happen is a work coach will refer a candidate to apply for that position. The candidate then follows up with the application, but this doesn't always happen. So it's always best to put a slightly higher referral number than what you would ideally hope for. And then the last few details that application will hope to capture is things on closing dates, but these can always be changed at a later date. But as your Gateway, one good thing we're in the position to do is we often will pre-screen your applications, and we're in a position where we'll be able to flag up anything that we think might be a bit of an issue, or if there's anything that you need to expand on in bits and pieces like that. But in terms of the application, we're always on hand. If there's anyone on the call today that's looking to apply, and if you're a bit unsure, feel free to just send us an email. We can send you out an application, and we're more than happy to jump on a call and go through anything if you're a bit unsure. But without further ado, I will pass back over to Jimmy, who will touch upon the due diligence checking for the application forms.
Excellent, Rachel, thank you very much for that. And yeah, so moving on to the next point is due diligence checking. So any business that makes an application to the Kickstart scheme will go through a due diligence check via DWP. And there is a tool used there called the Cabinet Office Spotlight tool. And I call it like it's like a credit check for businesses. So if you were to, as a personal individual, if you're applying for a credit card, you would go, the credit reference agency would be used. This is exactly the same, but for businesses. What it will look at, the Cabinet Office Spotlight tool, and this is information that I have gathered myself kind of organically and anecdotally over the last few months. There's financial checks that are looked at, so making sure there isn't any CCJs or any kind of fraud scores or anything like that, and that the accounts are filed as well. So these are businesses that have Companies House registration numbers. And also something I've also noticed is as well as length of trading. So what we're finding is that if you're incorporated less than 12 months, that usually will end up causing an issue in terms of a due diligence check. And the business may be rejected on that. We're also hearing as well that if there's a board associated with the business, that there's more than one individual appointed to the board. The next slide that we'll talk about, we're not moving on to it just yet, but the next slide we'll talk about is a Gateway Plus. setup, because with the current setup of the Cabinet Office Spotlight tool, sole traders and limited companies wouldn't automatically go through that process. Yeah, so it's businesses just need to be aware that when they're making their application, that these checks are done, and the process is. It can take usually 4 to 6 weeks, and that process is getting quicker at the moment. If we move on to the next slide, please, Emma. So I mentioned earlier there that the due diligence check and the Cabinet Office Spotlight tool, it uses the key identifier that it uses is a company's house registration number. And therefore, if a business was applying and they were sole trader status and or a partnership, they don't have an incorporation number, so it's the Gateway Plus model. Now, I was going to bring Mark in here if you're able, or Linda, if you were able to talk a little bit more about the Gateway Plus side of things.
Yeah. Yep. Is Linda, you want to come in there?
Linda, you're on mute, just so you know.
When you go, Mark, if you were had your moment there.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Well, at the moment, the Gateway Plus model is restricted to, in this particular area, Adecco. We've got, I think 5 or 6 national companies that are taking that responsibility for Gateway Plus, and that's where the original plan of a host organisation, a host gateway organisation, taking on the responsibility as in all but name the employer, and then placing the individual within the sole trader as the host sort of organisation there to sort of devolve the responsibility. But at this moment in time, where we would have obviously preferred the Gateway Plus model to be rolled out, I definitely know that one of our colleagues in East, another gateway organisation there, is really keen to take that on themselves. We've had to sort of push back in that meantime and pause any sort of autonomous discussions around sole traders and Gateway Plus. It's just using, I think, Adecco would be the go-to one for us. Linda, would that be about right?
Yeah, Adecco Working Ventures, and actually the Chamber of Commerce and the Wirral are 2 of the pilot organisations that are trialling the Gateway Plus model. And at the moment, each area, so Scotland as an area, have submitted a further 8 organisations that are really keen and are deemed to be, in a position to probably support this to the national team. But those are still under consideration just now while they evaluate the model with the Gateway Plus organisations that are delivering it at the moment. So yeah, that's the option, and at the moment it's pretty much the only option for our sole traders or anyone else that is there's where there's kind of gaps in the process just now, but you want to take part in Kickstart. We can put you in touch with Adecco Working Ventures and obviously take forward your Kickstart opportunity that way.
So at this point, I would say, sole traders and those other businesses that don't have incorporation numbers, if they were to come to ourselves, what we would do is we would signpost you to Linda and her team, who would then, because it's a bit of a movable feast at the moment in terms of the Gateway Plus model, but it means that there is opportunities for for businesses of all profiles to get involved in it. So thanks for that. We've already discussed the advantages of using a gateway, and Linda presented some of that and the wraparound support. So on the Gateway Plus, if we were to move on now, Emma, to the next slide, which is the funding and payments. I'll just talk about this in a little bit more detail, give you an overview. Again, I think I've seen some of the questions coming in, and we'll come to that at the end of the presentation. So what funding is available? So this is it's government grant funding, and what is funded is the national age-related minimum wage for 6 months for 25 hours a week. If a business would like to, if a business is a real living wage employer, and we have some employers like that and local authorities, they can top up the wages, but those top-ups would come from their own financial resources. There is also a wraparound support grant that we've referred to a couple of times earlier in the discussion today of £1,500. Now, the £1,500 grant is payable to the employer, minus any agreed deductions. And when we get notification from the employer that a Kickstart candidate has started in placement, we will notify DWP of that, and approximately 10 working days later, the £1,500 will arrive in our accounts, and then we have 5 working days from that receipt of that under our agreement with DWP as the Gateway DWP grant agreement, and we will send the funds directly to the employer, minus, as I said, minus any agreed deductions. And that's where we would have a conversation with each employer to identify what training and support that they're hoping to put the candidate through. And that might be some sector-specific training and licenses, certificates, and the £1,500 can also be used for any onboarding equipment, etc., PPE that needs to be done as well. I know there have been various questions on eligible expenditure or ineligible expenditure. Any queries or any concerns around what you want to use that money for, certainly email us, and if we don't know the answer to that then we will speak with the DWP regional team, Linda again as our account manager, and so we will have those conversations with that. In terms of clawback, I mean, there are situations where candidates may not last the full 6 months in their placement for whatever reason that may be. And employers have come back to us and have said, you know, what are the clawback implications? There isn't any prescribed clawback. What the guidelines are telling us and what's in the agreement is that you need to evidence that expenditure. So if you were to bring in a second candidate into the placement and you wanted to do additional training for them, and you've got some of that £1,500 from the first candidate already there, then there's actually no problem in using that remaining fund to provide additional training to that candidate. What we would say is that you need to obviously keep the financial records, any invoices, etc., bank statements, and under the agreement as well, it would be for 7 years that you would keep that as well. Payment of wages is a question that I've been asked, and it was most recently yesterday afternoon. And how does the wages payment process actually work? So when you take on a Kickstart candidate, you will be putting them through your normal PAYE system, and the information from the PAYE feeds into obviously HMRC, and DWP access that real-time information from HMRC. And what will then happen is it will tell DWP how much that candidate has been paid, and then that will trigger what the payment is into our business account. And then we have the unique identifier, the introduction ID, and again, we then cascade that payment to the employer directly. There isn't any deductions from that. And the first payment, where the payment pattern is about 6 weeks after, approximately 6 weeks after the candidate starts in placement. So the employer, in essence, will be cash flowing the first month for that, and then there is monthly payments thereafter as well. So if the candidate leaves placement, your PAYE system wouldn't be paying the candidate anyway, and again, HMRC would be feeding that real-time information to DWP so that you would not be out of pocket and you would get all payments up to date. Our role as a gateway organisation is very, very clear, is that we need to make sure that we get prompt payment to yourselves. We have our systems set up, our admin processes are in place, they are robust, and within 5 working days of receiving any money, we will make sure that those get paid directly to the employers. And so far, I am very glad to say that we have met all of our obligations in relation to that. In terms of early leavers, we've covered that. Again, if there's any questions in relation to that, we can talk about that at the end. If we move on now to the next slide, the penultimate one, which is evidence and records, Emma. There we go. So just a lot of this we've touched on already, but evidence of wraparound support. Again, I would say is just keep copies of all documentation, invoices, email communications. If you're purchasing any training from ourselves, we will obviously issue invoices, certificates of completion, etc., and your bank statements if you just keep those as well. 7 years is the time scale for that. And in terms of audit, this would be the information that would be asked for. There isn't any guarantee that you would be subjected to audit, but it's something just to be aware of. The Gateway Employer Agreement is a vital document that we send that out at the earliest opportunity once your vacancies are live, and we need to get a physical copy of that back. So Rachel's in the process of managing that at the moment, and that's working well. Once we get them, I will countersign them. I'm working remotely, as most of us are at the moment, so I'm popping into the office once a fortnight or thereabouts, and I will countersign all of those employer gateway agreements, and then we get them sent electronically to yourself. If you do want a hard physical copy, then let us know, and we will post that out to you as well. If we just move on, I think that's really just the wrap up of the formal presentation. And if you bring up the next 2 bullet points, now's the opportunity to look at questions. We'll share these slides with everybody as well as part of the follow-up. There's some direct contact details there for ourselves and for DWP. But that all remains for me now is to say thanks to everybody for listening to me, and now is the opportunity for questions and answers. We have Suzanne, we have Mark, we have Linda, we have Rachel, and we have myself, and we'll try our very best to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Jimmy, and thank you to all of our speakers this morning. A lot to cover off and a lot to get through, a lot of detail, but all incredibly useful and helpful, I'm sure. I'm going to just really open the floor to questions, just given the time. We've had quite a bit of activity on the chat, which is great to see. So it's great to see people getting involved and engaged. I was going to, if possible, come to Lorna Clayton first of all. I think many of the questions were answered, hopefully, or many of the points were covered, hopefully, in the presentation. But Lorna was asking some specific questions around the selection process, I guess, and I know that we did cover that, and Linda did give a bit of a summary on that. But Lorna, would you like to come in at this point and just raise any additional questions that you have around that selection process?
Thank you. Yes, Joanne and everybody, great presentation. It was around, I think you answered most of it. It was around the aspect of, are you finding jobs for people, or are you finding people for jobs, and just where that focus is. But I think what you said was that the account managers, that's their role to ensure that we don't get flooded with inappropriate applicants reaching the threshold. And I think also Rachel said that there's the great demand for graduates, and I think Linda, it was, who said that there were actually not that many graduates there, and so that's just to manage expectation. So
I think, Lorna, I can maybe come in your question around about, are we finding jobs for people or people for jobs? So it's kind of a 2-pronged approach here, really. So the work coaches are trying to find the person with the right skills for the job specification that the employer gives us. So we will look to what the job specification is asking for, then we'll look through our caseload of customers to think, who do we think that's got the right level of skills, and we'll make sure that they've got a sufficient, adequate level of CV, covering letter, whatever it is you've asked for that you want to use as your sort of selection process products. the role for the account manager is to link with you while your vacancy is live to say, so how's it going? Are you getting the applications in? Are they of the quality and standard that you're looking for? And if the answer is yes, then that's great, because you're getting the right level of applications in and you're able to make a good selection from what you've got. If the selection level is not at where you want, you think, well, actually, we're getting CVs in, but they're not of the quality or caliber we're looking for, then our account managers will go back to the work coaches and say, right, this is not quite hitting the mark. You need to be hitting off X, Y, and Z, or it needs to be a bit more detailed or a bit more evidence-based or whatever it is that's not hitting the mark for you. And then the work coaches will re-look through their caseloads, maybe revisit some of the original customers to say, like, you didn't really showcase your skills properly on that CV. Do you want to have another go at your CV and put it in? So that's the kind of role of how we try and match the person to the job between the work coach and the account manager.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you for that, Suzanne, and thanks for the question, Lorna. Kelly Wright has you've put a couple of questions on the chat, Kelly, around caps for young people and expectations at the end of the placement. Would you like to ask those questions live, or?
Yeah, 1 second, I'll just unmute myself. Hi. Yeah, so we potentially have a number of roles, but I just wondered, is there a cap per size of business? Because I'm obviously a small business. And also, what are the expectations at the end of the 6 months? Because what I'd hate to see is somebody, you know, go through that 6-month process and really learn some skills and then have nothing at the end of it. So what is the support for that young person at the end of that?
Right. Well, what happens is it's not so much as a cap, Kelly, it's what they're looking at is the general sort of offer that you're putting out there for the young person. So they do look at it as a bit of a ratio. And it's not sort of written in stone as such, but they do look around, about a kind of 3-to-1 as for 3 existing employees to properly support a young person. But especially in a smaller employer, they may consider 2-to-1 or whatever, but they will look at how realistic is that, and does it sound like it's going to be a good experience for the young person? And really, it's to avoid sort of any, sort of something that looks a bit unusual with existing 3 staff looking for 50 Kickstart or something, to be extreme in that example. But for yourself, they do kind of look maybe 2 to 3 to 1 person, just so that they are getting that support. And the expectation is that, with this £1,500, that there is, a real investment in that person. Not only are they learning because they're in that work experience situation, learning every day alongside their employer, you are investing in certain kind of key components of their development, and that you are looking for it to be a real sort of opportunity for them to have developed in that 6 months. And if you are not able to retain them at that time, part 8 will be, there's no sort of prescriptive you must do, but you will, if you've written a bid, they will be looking to see about maybe giving them some CV, some, in this environment just now, sort of online interviewing techniques, just about, how would you look for jobs in this, the sector that we're already working in, just sharing your real experience, maybe tapping into experts that you've already got within your business, and also just being aware, being involved with somebody like obviously the Chamber of Commerce. There are, within the City of Edinburgh and the council, they've got some grants for extending, the young person's time on Kickstart. It wouldn't be Kickstart, but with that employer, if it's a smaller employer and there is a real benefit to the young person, they often have funding where they could extend that for perhaps another 6 months. So all of that would be, through the knowledge that we would all build up in that relationship while you were employing that young person.
On that point of the extension potential, well, we say it's not an extension, but there is the opportunity to move on to another funding vehicle, I suppose is the best way to describe it. We have some information about that, and we can share that with everybody as part of the follow-up from today as well.
Yeah. So if there isn't a position available within the business, because we know from the last 12 months we don't know what happens in 12 months, do we? We just don't know. But there is sort of mentoring support at the end of that. For that young person.
And we would be what happens as part of our work coach support as well is that they have about 2 interventions at least with the young person, just to check in and how are they going, and certainly about the 4-month stage, just to do a bit of a check-in, because you know, it's all good, we've got a career path all mapped out and I'm good, or, you know, you don't want someone coming, you know, down from a real high to just, you know, getting dropped back down again. We want to keep that momentum going and get them back into work as soon as possible. So we are really keep that engagement going as well, because it's such, you know, it's such an investment, but we need to keep that momentum going, Kelly. So yeah, that would be the role of our work coaches if we can't find a solution to keep them in employment.
Great, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you for that. That's a great question, Kelly. Nadine Pierce, you had a question around the possible extension of the scheme beyond the December, the December deadline. Would you like to come and ask that question?
Yeah, just in case there are extensions, maybe in terms of the age range of potential candidates, or the length of the Kickstarter scheme itself, or even the hours that the funding covers. Would we automatically qualify for that? We've just had our adverts go live, and I believe there was some information in the budget about this specifically. Would we have to reapply, or would these changes automatically, you know, be part of our application?
If I was to answer that honestly, Nadine, I think we would need to wait and see what the detail was just now. You know, what's the agreement, what's the grant agreement, you know, sort of committing to at the moment, and how do we do that? I mean, we have things just now where we have brought in forms called variations that didn't exist a few months ago, you know, to add additional employers and job roles. So it could be something like that, but without the detail, Nadine, I honestly couldn't answer that, and I don't know if any of my colleagues could either. You know, we would really need to wait on the detail. Thanks, sorry, but that was really the answer, Nadine.
Okay, so you know no more than us then.
Yeah, no, not at this moment, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we have a question from, the name has just disappeared, from Liz Stewart around the journey for young people. Liz, would you like to come in and ask that question?
Sure. Yes. And first of all, I just want to say I think this is a great scheme, you know, for young people, hopefully, but also I think for us. And, you know, I hope we're successful with our application. I was just wondering what the journey for young people was to find opportunities. So would it be purely through the work coaches, or would it be a case of employers posting their opportunities online or wherever? And then I just wondered if that was the latter route, how does this get matched up with the work coaches?
Yeah, we are really looking for it to come through the work coaches so that they have that understanding about the young person and what their aspirations are, what their history is, etc. So that there is a bit of a narrative. It's not just a sort of blind kind of match. And so referral does have to be by a work coach through what we call the universal credit build. So there is that checks eligibility and it triggers off the whole sort of process, if you like. We do make use of social media to promote some vacancies. And as we say, we tend to prioritise that on vacancies. Some vacancies are a bit more challenging to fill, if you like, because of the sort of niche criteria that employer is added to that. And other times they're really popular just with what we have, our internal promotion system. So we have 3 times a day, we do what we call buzzies with our work coaches, letting them know about hot new vacancies, ones that are approaching closing. If you're interested in this, make sure you promote it, you know. So we have a lot of internal promotion as well. But of course, if there's something within a safe partnership where you know that there is suitable Kickstart opportunities and you are working with young people and young people in universal credit, then, you know, if you do have knowledge of vacancies, etc., and it does seem suitable, then obviously, you know, you may discuss that with a young person, but they still need to come to their work coach and they do need to have that conversation that they all agree it's the right fix for that young person, and then make the referral through universal credit. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for that. I'm very conscious of time. So John Donald is asking a question around if the Chamber covers firms based in East Lothian. Jimmy, Rachel, that's probably one for you, hopefully easy to answer.
Yeah, I mean, we can, in essence, we can take an application from any employer anywhere. We're there as the facilitator for putting the application to DWP, where they do the due diligence check against the applicant, and then we are that vehicle that channels the financial funding and additional wraparound support as available. So yeah, in essence, we can. But there would probably be a preference for the majority of businesses to go with a gateway that's in the local area. And if you wanted to find out who they are, it's available on the Direct Gov website, and Linda would be able to provide you with a detail of gateways in that particular area that you're located.
Absolutely no problem. There's a Chamber of Commerce in that area, and there's also the local authority, or both gateway organisations. But as Jimmy said, there is no restriction from becoming involved with the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce either.
Well, we are a member of Edinburgh Chamber,
yes.
But one of the issues that we have had out in East Lothian is we're in a fairly remote part, so we've often employed young people who live in Edinburgh. But as soon as another opportunity comes up where they can be in the city, they leave, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
This is a pain in the neck for us, because often we go to a lot of trouble to recruit the people in the first place. So I think that's a bit of an issue.
Yeah, this is an area that's been highlighted before, and working with the various stakeholders here, with your DWP work coaches and your gateway organisation, which would be ourselves and yourself, is we would really start to really help and try and nail that recruitment process and find there will be candidates out there who are ideally suited. It just might not be an overnight fix, so it might be a slightly longer process, but working and keeping the communication between the stakeholders will be the key to success of finding somebody suitable for a placement within your business.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm conscious, I know we have another couple of questions in the chat, but I'm afraid we're just out of time to ask those. But hopefully you've had lots of contact information today, and we'll also make sure that you get all of that contact information and the follow-up that we send out post this call, and you can hopefully follow up with those questions, or perhaps maybe Rachel can make notes and get back to you independently. Can I just thank everyone today for their time and for their engagement and for coming along and asking so many interesting and insightful questions. Can I especially thank our fantastic speakers? I know I said at the start that these were the people to ask, and I believe they've absolutely proven that this morning. So thank you to Jimmy and Rachel, Linda, Suzanne and Mark for your time. I think one thing that is undeniable from what we've seen today is the kind of level of passion and help and support that is there to try and support employers and young people through this initiative is absolutely there at the local level. So please come and take advantage of that and use it. This is a hugely important scheme, not just for our members as businesses, but also for the young people that it supports. And hopefully you'll all have seen, I didn't get a chance to bring him in, but Andrew Morrison had put something in the chat a bit earlier about a success that they have had in using the scheme to recruit, and their intention to continue to use it for further placements, which is great, and we want to see much more of that. So please thank you all very, very much for your time and attention. Please avail yourselves of the opportunity that's been given to you today to ask questions and get involved and get the support that is available to you, and good luck with your applications, and fingers crossed we will see you all at a future chamber event sometime soon. Thank you very much.